Hi everyone! Today's pattern is one that allows you to mix and match materials from your sewing room, something I love to do. I love a good chance to color block, or in this case, mix knits and wovens. I'm sewing and sharing Burda 6128. I'll leave the link below so that you can check it out, grab it, and sew it along with me today. The base fabric of this top is a knit. They recommend sweatshirting fabric or a jersey, and today I'm using a French terry. For the sleeve frills, you could use decorative trims, lace, or even pretty scraps that you have stashed. I used some remnant eyelet fabric. So let's get started making a cute and comfy tee with some extra special pizzazz. One thing I want to point out before we get started is that this pattern does include a 5/8 inch seam allowance, which is perfect if you're constructing this garment on your sewing machine. However, I'm making this blouse completely on my serger, so I'm going to reduce the seam allowance to 1/4 inch. So to do that, I just took my seam allowance ruler all around the garment and took off 3/8 inch from my size line. Going around and tracing a new line, deducting 3/8 inch from the seam allowance, left me with 1/4 inch, which is perfect for my serger. You will need one front piece cut on the fold, one back piece cut on the fold, decorative trim or lace by 1 5/8 inch, and another piece of the same length of decorative trim or lace with a width of 2 3/4 inches, and 1 3/8 yards of bias tape. I've chosen to use 1 inch wide strips of my self fabric just so that my binding matches my sweatshirt. Place your front and back pieces right sides together and pin your shoulder and side seams. And sew both shoulders and side seams. Now we're going to begin to attach our lace trim pieces to the sleeves. The specific lengths for each of your lace trim pieces are noted in your pattern, and I've gone ahead and rolled the hems of each of the outer edges of each trim piece. This will give it a nice finish so they don't fray, and you want to do this for each piece. If you have a rolled hem foot for your sewing machine, this will make this very easy. Otherwise, you can just fold and press 1/4 inch and then roll that edge in on itself to meet the crease that you made on the iron, pin, and then sew along that inner fold with your sewing machine. And you'll have a nice clean finish. Now take one of your narrow pieces of trim and place its wrong side on top of the right side of your wider piece of trim. Match the upper edges and pin. And now I want to taper the hard edges of my trim so that they're nicely rounded at the edges. I'm just using a French curve and round each corner. Once they're rounded, and you've done this for each pair of trims, they're ready to baste. Take it to your sewing machine and baste this upper edge with the longest stitch on your machine so that we can gather it to fit within the notches on our sleeve cap. Find the center of your sleeve frill and match it with your shoulder seam. Place them right sides together and pin. Now gather each side of your frill so that it fits between the notch marked on your pattern piece and the shoulder seam. Once your gathers are distributed equally between both points, go ahead and clip. And continue on the other side. Now take this to your sewing machine and baste your frills to the armhole. Now that our frills are basted in place, it's time to bind the armholes. Using your bias tape or self fabric strip, fold back one of your short edges by about 1/4 inch and match this with your underarm seam. Right sides together and clip. Continue clipping your binding all around your armhole, right sides together, sandwiching your frill in between. Once you're back where you started, let the two ends overlap and pin. Let them overlap by about 1/2 inch, and you can cut off any excess beyond that. Sew or serge your binding to your armholes. I've serged my binding to the armhole with the frills sandwiched in between. Now I'm going to turn the binding into the inside of the shirt. and pin the binding all around the armhole, working from the outside and catching the binding on the other side. Now, using a twin needle or a cover stitch machine, sew all around the armhole, catching the edges of the binding for a nice clean finish. Do this for both armholes. Have nice discreet stitching on the outside and a nice clean finish on the inside. And now we're going to attach the neckline binding in the same exact way as we did for the armholes. Start by folding that short edge of your binding to the inside by 1/4 inch and place it right sides together with your neckline, starting at center back. Pin or clip all the way around and then serge or sew your neckline. Once your binding is attached to the neckline, turn it to the inside as we did for the armholes and pin all the way around. Top stitch using your preferred stretch stitch. And now the very last step is to hem the shirt. Because I trimmed off seam allowance in the very beginning to accommodate for sewing on my serger, I'm just going to fold it up 1 inch and clip. Take it to your machine and sew your hem with your preferred stretch stitch, and you are all done with your shirt. Thank you for watching this sew along. Make sure you check out my other videos for more great sewing projects. Subscribe, like, share, and I'll see you in the next video.